A vast digital network tracks your every choice and click. Governments and corporations seem to hold all the cards, their influence absolute and inescapable. Yet there is an ancient secret, a paradox of power that turns this entire dynamic upside down. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the core of a profound truth. True power does not come from controlling the world around you, but from mastering the world within you. This video will reveal how specific Stoic principles, demonstrated through powerful historical figures, systematically dismantle the control of tyrants and empower the oppressed. You will discover a timeless framework for personal freedom that no external force can ever take away. We will uncover how a quiet philosophy became a weapon of the mind and explore why a ruler's greatest fear is a subject who fears nothing. What does real control actually feel like to you? This idea presents a direct challenge to our most basic instincts. We are conditioned to believe that power is the ability to make the world bend to our will. It is the command of armies, the accumulation of wealth, the authority to dictate terms. But the Stoics unveiled a radical paradox, one that turns this entire definition on its head. True power, they argued, is not about controlling others. It is about mastering yourself. This is the essential contradiction that makes Stoicism so enduring and so dangerous to any system built on coercion. In ancient Rome, a society obsessed with conquest and dominance, this was a revolutionary thought. Today, in a world that still glorifies external control, it remains just as radical. The entire philosophy rests on a single, profound distinction made by the former slave Epictetus. He called it the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, he taught, while others are not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions, these are ours to command. Everything else, from our reputation and our health to the actions of other people, is ultimately not under our control. The path to misery is to struggle against this fundamental truth. The path to freedom is to embrace it. Think for a moment about your own life. When have you felt the most powerful? Was it in a moment when you successfully manipulated an outcome or forced a situation to go your way? Or was it when you faced a crushing setback, an unexpected failure, or a profound loss, and yet you found the strength to respond with clarity, dignity, and unshaken inner resolve? That feeling, that inner fortitude in the face of the uncontrollable, is the genuine power the Stoics point toward. It is a power that no tyrant can confiscate and no circumstance can erode. This inner territory, this space of your own judgments and choices, is what the Stoics envisioned as a fortress. They called it the Inner Citadel. It is a mental stronghold that you alone command, a sanctuary of reason and will that no external force can ever truly penetrate. Tyrants can command your body, they can seize your property, and they can destroy your reputation, but they cannot force you to adopt a belief you know to be false or to abandon a principle you hold to be true. Your consent is the final gate, and you hold the only key. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who spent years on military campaigns far from Rome, constantly returned to this idea in his private writings. He reminded himself, remember this when you are in a rage at anyone. What is near to you is this inner ruling faculty. He was telling himself that his power resided not in his imperial authority, but in the quiet governance of his own mind. This inner sovereignty is the ultimate safeguard. We see its profound power not in the lives of comfortable philosophers, but in those subjected to extreme pressure. Consider a political prisoner, isolated and subjected to relentless interrogation. Their captors control every aspect of their physical world, the food they eat, the light they see, the sounds they hear. Yet, by retreating into this inner citadel, the prisoner can perform the most revolutionary act possible. They can refuse to grant their captors the one thing they truly want, their inner surrender. They can choose what to believe about their cause, they can control their own dignity, and they can decide that their spirit remains unbroken. This is not a passive resignation. It is the most active form of resistance because it defends the only territory that ultimately matters for a person's freedom. The oppressor's tools of fear and force become useless against someone who has mastered this internal space. A tyrant's authority is a phantom, a fragile illusion sustained only by the terrified consent of the governed. His power does not reside within himself, but is loaned to him by the fear of others, and that loan can be called in at any moment. This is the critical weakness that Stoic self-mastery exploits with devastating precision. By conquering his own fears, a Stoic withdraws his consent from the entire structure of control. He stops paying the emotional tax that funds the tyrant's reign. We see this dramatic reversal play out in the fraught relationship between the philosopher Seneca and his former student, the Emperor Nero. Seneca, a wealthy and influential statesman, had embodied the Stoic ideal of engaging with the world while remaining detached from its corruptions. But as Nero's paranoia and cruelty grew, Seneca's inner fortress became a direct threat. The emperor commanded his old tutor to commit suicide, a final, brutal test of absolute power. Seneca's response was not panic or pleading. He met the command with serene acceptance. He calmly discussed philosophy with his friends, and when the time came, he opened his own veins. In his final moments, he was not a subject being punished by his ruler. He was a free man demonstrating that the tyrant's ultimate weapon, the threat of death, held no terror for him. He had written, "He who has learned to die has unlearned to be a slave." In that single, peaceful act of self-control, Seneca revealed Nero's power as the hollow thing it was. The emperor could end a life, but he could not command a spirit. This is the core of the paradox. The more a despot tries to crush a person who fears nothing, the more he exposes his own powerlessness. His threats become empty noise. His punishments become meaningless gestures. The control he exerts over the external world is useless against someone who has mastered the internal one. Think about the modern systems of control you encounter, not from a single tyrant, but from the pressures of social approval, corporate demands, or cultural expectations. What are their true weaknesses? They rely on your desire for status, your fear of exclusion, your craving for validation. The moment you recognize that these external things are not within your control, and you choose to find your worth within your own character and actions, their power over you begins to dissolve. You stop feeding the phantom. The real question is not how powerful the system appears, but what it needs from you to survive. What are you still afraid to lose? Epictetus drew a line in the sand of the human experience. Some things are up to us, he taught, and some things are not. Our own judgments, our efforts, our desires, and our actions, these are within our power. Everything else, our bodies, our possessions, our reputations, and the actions of others, are not. This simple division is the master key that unlocks the chains of oppression. An oppressor, whether an ancient tyrant or a modern toxic manager, only has power over the things that are not up to us, what the Stoics called the indifference. They can threaten your job, they can criticize your work, they can create a hostile environment, but they cannot force you to form a negative opinion of yourself. They cannot make you abandon your integrity. They cannot stop you from doing your best with the tasks you are given. your inner citadel remains yours alone. An employee who internalizes this principle can face a demanding, unfair boss with a profound sense of calm. The manager controls the external reward, the paycheck, and the promotion, but the employee controls their own effort, their own ethics, their own professional pride. By focusing exclusively on what is within their power, their own performance and attitude, the employee robs the manager of the very leverage that toxicity relies on, the power to provoke fear, anxiety, and emotional turmoil. Epictetus put it directly, saying, "Remember, it is not the person who insults you or attacks you who harms you, but the view you take of these things as harmful." So when you are upset, know that you yourself are the source of your upset. This is not about blaming the victim. It is about empowering the individual by revealing the true location of the battle. The conflict is not out there in the uncontrollable actions of another person. It is inside your own mind, in your judgment of those actions. And that is a battle you can always win, because you are the sole commander of that territory. So ask yourself this reflective question: what situation in your life feels most oppressive right now? And how much of that feeling comes from your intense focus on trying to control something or someone that you ultimately cannot? This final piece of the puzzle may be the most difficult to grasp, yet it is the most transformative. It is the practice of amor fati, the love of fate. This is not a quiet, passive resignation to whatever life throws at you. It is an active, even joyful, embrace of reality in its entirety, especially the suffering and the setbacks. By loving your fate, you perform the ultimate act of psychological rebellion. You take the very thing an oppressor intends to use to break you, and you transform it into the foundation of your strength. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. This is the essence of amor fati." You become that fire, consuming every obstacle, every hardship, and using it for your own light and heat. An oppressor inflicts punishment expecting to create despair. But when you meet that punishment not with despair, but with a deeper resolve and a quiet acceptance, you shatter their entire strategy. You are no longer a victim of your circumstances. You are the master of your relationship to them. Consider the long imprisonment of Nelson Mandela. For 27 years, the South African government held him captive, believing that isolation and hard labor would crush his spirit and erase his influence from the world. They controlled his body completely, but within the confines of that cell, Mandela performed a remarkable act of inner alchemy. He did not merely endure his fate. He embraced it. He used the endless time for reflection and study. He built discipline through physical exercise. He forged deeper connections with his fellow prisoners. The prison was meant to be a tool of his destruction. Through his loving acceptance of the reality he was in, he transformed it into the crucible that forged him into a global symbol of reconciliation and strength. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, later captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This is the ultimate defiance. It is the refusal to wish for a different past or to pin your happiness on an uncertain future. It is the decision to find meaning and power exactly where you are, exactly as you are right now. When you can look at your greatest challenges, your deepest losses, and say, "This too is part of my story and I accept it fully," you achieve a level of freedom that is utterly unassailable. You have taken the tyrant's favorite weapon and turned it into your shield. Every single day, an endless barrage of impressions storms the gates of your mind. A critical comment from a coworker, a frightening headline on the news, a tempting advertisement promising happiness. These are not truths in themselves. They are merely suggestions, proposals waiting for your signature. The Stoics called this final, decisive act of the mind assent. It is your inner approval, your yes or no. And this right here is the very engine of your freedom. No external force, no matter how powerful, can ever reach inside your consciousness and force you to sign on the dotted line. A tyrant can broadcast lies across an entire empire, but he cannot make you believe them. A manipulator can spin a web of deceit, but he cannot force you to get caught in it. Your power to withhold assent is your ultimate veto. The philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery and thus intimately familiar with external powerlessness, put it with stunning clarity. He said, "Remember, it is not the person who insults you or attacks you who harms you, but your own judgment that they are harming you. You can choose not to be harmed, and you will not feel harmed. Do not feel harmed, and you have not been." This is the radical core of Stoic practice. An insult is just a collection of sounds. It only becomes a wound when you assent to the impression that it has diminished you. Propaganda is just a series of words and images. It only becomes your reality when you assent to its narrative. Think of a simple, modern scenario. You send a detailed message to a friend, and you receive a one-word reply, "Fine." Your mind immediately presents you with an impression. It says they are angry with you, you have done something wrong. This impression feels true, it carries the weight of truth. But is it? The Stoic move is to pause, to withhold your immediate assent, to examine the impression. Could they simply be busy? Could their phone battery be dying? By refusing to immediately sign that initial, distressing interpretation, you reclaim your peace. You act from a place of reason, not reaction. So take a moment and look back on your own week. When did you feel a sudden spike of anxiety, a flash of anger, or a sinking feeling of inadequacy? Trace that feeling back. What initial impression did you accept without question? What story did you sign into law inside your own mind, giving it the power to dictate your emotional state? That moment of unexamined assent is where we so often hand our freedom over to the world. And the beautiful, liberating truth is that it is also the exact moment where we can always take it back. Your refusal to be broken by circumstance becomes a beacon for everyone watching. This inner resilience perfected by the Stoics is far more than a personal comfort. Under the shadow of tyranny, it transforms into a potent political act. When one person stands firm, enduring hardship without surrendering their dignity or their voice, they demonstrate a terrifying truth to the oppressor. His tools of fear and pain have limits. This unbroken spirit does more than just survive. It actively saps the strength of the one in power by inspiring others to find their own. The Roman Republic's final days offer a stark example in the figure of Cato the Younger. As Julius Caesar marched on Rome, seizing absolute control, Cato became the living embodiment of republican resistance. He did not lead a great army. His power was not in legions but in his unwavering character. He opposed Caesar not with equal violence but with a moral consistency that was utterly unshakable. Even after his side lost the civil war, Cato refused to live under a dictator's rule. His subsequent suicide was not an act of despair, but a final, powerful statement of principle. It was a declaration that some men would rather cease to exist than cease to be free. In that single act, Cato's resilience became a legend that fueled the conspiracy to assassinate Caesar, proving that one person's steadfastness can ignite a fire in the hearts of many. The philosopher Seneca, who witnessed these turbulent times, wrote of the power in such endurance. He said, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." The tyrant's suffering is the test. It is the fire that reveals the purity of a person's character, not to destroy them, but to prove their strength to the world. This visible strength is contagious. In any community, whether a nation, a company, or a social circle, the person who remains calm under pressure, who is not derailed by gossip or threats, quietly redefines the rules of the game for everyone. They become a living argument for a different way to be. So consider your own sphere of influence. Where do you see unfairness or pressure being used to control people? Your own commitment to resilience, your choice to meet that pressure with unyielding calm and integrity, is not just a personal victory, it is a political one. It shows everyone else that the cage door was never locked. Your calm is the signal that others can be calm too. Your courage gives them permission to be brave. This is the ripple effect of a fortified inner citadel. It starts within you, but it never, ever ends there. A tyrant's control is a puppet show of prizes and punishments. He dangles titles and status to make you dance, and he wields public disgrace to make you cower. But what if you simply walked away from the entire performance? The Stoics called this state of liberation indifference to external honors. It is the profound realization that your worth is not determined by your job title, your social standing, or the applause of the crowd. These things are not inherently good or bad, they are merely indifferent. Their true value lies only in how you use them and whether you cling to them. When you cease to crave these external validations, you become immune to the very system a controller uses to manipulate you. He cannot reward you with something you do not desire, and he cannot punish you by taking away something you never believed defined you. History offers a powerful, though tragic, example in Thomas More. As Lord Chancellor of England, he held one of the highest positions in the land, a title of immense honor and power. Yet when King Henry VIII demanded he sign an oath that violated his deepest principles, More refused. He was utterly indifferent to the honor of his title when that honor required the sacrifice of his conscience. He chose a principle over a position, his integrity over his status, and he walked to the executioner's block with a calm that baffled his enemies. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, constantly reminded himself of the emptiness of public acclaim. He wrote in his private journal, "All these things, fame and the things that come with fame, are meaningless, smoke, nothing. How many who were once praised beyond measure are now utterly forgotten." This is not cynicism, it is clarity. It is the understanding that the cheers of a crowd are as fleeting as the wind, and to build your sense of self upon them is to build your house on shifting sand. So take a quiet moment to ask yourself, what external validations are you secretly attached to? Is it the professional title on your business card, the number of followers you have online, or the approval of a particular group? Your honest answer reveals the specific hooks that outside forces can use to pull you off your center. The moment you see those hooks for what they are, you have already begun to slip free. There is a profound power in willingly stepping into discomfort. While tyrants and systems of control bank on your fear of loss, you can systematically disarm that fear by choosing to lose something on your own terms. The Stoics called this voluntary discomfort, a training regimen for the soul. It is the deliberate act of giving up a comfort, not out of necessity, but as a form of mental and emotional strength training. By occasionally experiencing a smaller version of the deprivation a tyrant might threaten, you rob that threat of its power to terrify you. The Roman philosopher Seneca put it directly when he advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He was not promoting a life of austerity, but a practice of inoculation. You expose yourself to a small dose of hardship so that you build the antibodies against the fear of that hardship. An oppressor's ultimate weapon is the threat of taking things away, your comfort, your security, your status. But if you have already shown yourself that you can live without these things and that your core self remains intact, then the threat becomes an empty bluff. Think of it like this: a person who has never gone without a meal lives in a low-grade terror of hunger. That fear can be used to manipulate them, but someone who has voluntarily fasted for a day knows with absolute certainty that they can endure it. That knowledge is a form of liberation. In a modern context, this could mean consciously deciding to turn off the heating for an evening and using a blanket instead, or choosing to walk for an hour rather than taking the car, or spending a weekend without your smartphone. These are not acts of self-punishment. They are small, deliberate exercises in self-reliance. Each time you do this, you send a powerful message to your own mind. You are demonstrating that your well-being is not held hostage by your external conditions. So what small comfort could you voluntarily give up this week to feel more empowered? Perhaps it is that daily coffee shop visit, or the streaming service you binge watch, or simply the constant need to check for social media validation. By choosing to forego it, you are not just saving money or time. You are conducting a quiet, personal experiment in freedom. You are proving to yourself that you are the source of your own strength, and that no outside force can take that away. The tyrant who seems so immense, his threat so vast and immediate, begins to shrink when you pull back the lens of your mind. The Stoics practiced a powerful form of mental time travel known as the view from above, a meditation designed to reveal the true scale of our struggles. You are invited to look down upon your own life from a great height, not in dismissal but for perspective. See your city as a map, then your country as a shape, the earth as a blue-green sphere hanging in the void. From this vantage point, the office of the angry boss, the traffic jam that ruined your morning, the harsh word from a rival, what are they? They become tiny patterns of activity, fleeting and small against the backdrop of continents and oceans. This exercise is not meant to make your life seem meaningless, but to make your troubles manageable. It systematically dismantles the false importance we assign to momentary conflicts and the people who wield temporary power. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who commanded legions from the edge of the empire, constantly returned to this cosmic viewpoint to maintain his balance. He wrote in his private thoughts, "You can discard most of the junk that clutters your mind and clear out space by comprehending the scale of the world, by contemplating infinite time." He was reminding himself that the petty dramas of the court, the insults of his enemies, were just dust motes swirling in a sunbeam over a vast landscape. When you consciously adopt this view, you are not running away from your problems. You are placing them in their proper context, and in doing so, you drain the fear from them. That feeling of tightness in your chest, the simmering anger over a perceived slight, can it truly survive such a vast perspective? This mental shift fosters a deep and unshakable equanimity, a calm acceptance that comes from seeing the world as it truly is, immense and ancient. So take a breath right now, and for just a moment guide your own mind upward. Look down on your current greatest worry from this cosmic distance. See it as a single event in the long story of a tiny planet. Notice how its power to dominate your entire consciousness begins to soften and recede. The controller who looms so large in your daily life is revealed as a temporary figure on a stage that has seen countless such actors come and go. Your inner citadel is not just a fortress, it is an observatory, granting you a view of eternity that puts every tyrant in his place. This profound inner strength we have been exploring is not a solitary fortress. Stoic power, rooted in self-mastery, is fundamentally a social virtue, directed outward by a deep and active commitment to justice. The Stoics argued that true wisdom and courage are meaningless if they do not translate into just action for the common good. When you act with justice in an unjust system, you are not merely being a good person. You are performing a radical act of sabotage against that system's corruption. You create a small pocket of moral order, a zone where the tyrant's twisted logic does not apply, and these pockets, when multiplied, can cause the entire structure of oppression to crumble from within. Consider the philosopher Musonius Rufus, who taught Stoicism in Rome under the erratic and often brutal reign of Nero. He did not retreat into private life. He publicly advocated for justice, criticizing the excesses of the powerful, and even arguing for the education and moral equality of women. He was exiled not once but twice for his teachings. Yet he continued to teach and live his principles, demonstrating that a just man remains just regardless of the political weather. His classroom became one of those pockets of moral order, training students in a form of integrity that the empire could not corrupt. This outward focus is captured beautifully by the Stoic teacher Hierocles, who described our moral obligations as a series of concentric circles. At the center is your own mind. The next circle holds your immediate family, then your local community, your country, and finally, all of humanity. The task of the virtuous person, he said, is to draw these circles inward, to bring concern for the stranger as close as concern for your own kin. This philosophy systematically builds a world where the tyrant's tactic of dividing people against each other fails, because you see the common humanity in everyone. So, within your own sphere of influence, what is one small, just action you can take this week? It does not need to be a grand gesture. It could be speaking up for a coworker who is being treated unfairly, or choosing to listen with an open mind to someone you usually dismiss, or simply refusing to participate in a piece of office gossip that you know is untrue. Each of these acts is a declaration. It says that in your corner of the world, fairness and respect are the law of the land, and no external pressure can change that. This deep trust in a rational universe stands in direct opposition to the very soul of tyranny. A despot operates from a core belief that the world is chaos, a meaningless scramble for power where might makes right and compassion is a weakness. His nihilism is his fuel. The Stoic, however, sees a cosmos woven with purpose, a divine reason where every event, even the most painful, plays a part in a larger good pattern. This belief in providence is not a passive hope, it is an active source of ironclad courage. When you are certain that the universe itself is on the side of reason and virtue, you can endure temporary injustice with the calm of a soldier holding a strategic position, trusting in the final outcome. The Stoic philosopher Cleans captured this serene trust in his hymn to Zeus, writing, "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O destiny, to wherever your decrees have assigned me. I will follow without hesitation." This is the voice of someone who has handed over the navigation to a capable captain, freeing himself to focus solely on his own duty, which is to steer well through whatever waters he finds himself in. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this same wellspring of strength. He wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" He is not saying that every event is pleasant, but that it is necessary for the whole. The rain that ruins a picnic waters the forest. The fire that destroys a building forges the steel. The injustice you suffer reveals your character and strengthens the cause of justice for all who witness your response. This perspective transforms suffering from a random punishment into a meaningful contribution. The tyrant, in his nihilism, believes his power is the only law. The Stoic, trusting in providence, knows that the tyrant is merely a temporary, chaotic element in a system that is fundamentally ordered toward good. This trust provides a deep, unshakable confidence that no earthly power can mimic or destroy. Death is the final card a tyrant holds, the ultimate threat he believes can force anyone to kneel. But the Stoics saw this finality not as a defeat, but as the ultimate liberation. When you cease to fear the end of your life, you have dismantled the last and greatest instrument of control. No one can threaten you with a loss you have already accepted. This is the final, unassailable ground of personal freedom. The Stoic view of death was profoundly shaped by the example of Socrates, who calmly drank the hemlock, not as a condemned criminal, but as a free man demonstrating the power of his ideas. His final moments were not an execution, they were a philosophical argument made with his very life, proving that a just soul cannot be harmed by unjust men. His death became a triumph, immortalizing his teachings far more powerfully than if he had lived in quiet compromise. Centuries later, the Stoic Seneca echoed this fearless approach. He wrote, "The wise man will live as long as he ought, not as long as he can. Rehearse death in your mind. To say this is to accept the terms of life itself with open eyes." He instructed his friends to meet death cheerfully, as you would return a loan to a generous lender. This is not a morbid obsession with the end. It is the final, logical step in the practice of amor fati. You embrace your entire story, including its final punctuation mark. By making peace with your own mortality, you achieve a quality of life that is fearless and fully present. Every moment is lived with a deeper intensity because it is not haunted by the shadow of its eventual end. The controller who waves the specter of death as his ultimate weapon finds himself disarmed, staring at a person who has already made peace with that very outcome. The threat becomes meaningless, and with it, the tyrant's power evaporates into nothing. Your deepest wants are the invisible strings by which others can pull you. The Stoics identified this vulnerability and developed a powerful mental countermeasure they called the discipline of desire. This is not about suppressing all wants, but about retraining them, about learning to want only what is truly good, which is virtue, and what is truly yours, which is your own reasoned choice. When you master this discipline, you become immune to the oldest tricks of control, bribery, and the lure of rewards, because you no longer crave the things being offered. A bribe only works if you desire what the briber holds. A promise of promotion only manipulates you if you are attached to the title and the status. Strip away that desire and their power vanishes. The ancient Stoic philosopher Gaius Musonius Rufus was once offered a significant sum of money by the Roman government, a payment that was likely intended to buy his silence or his compliance. He refused it outright. He explained that accepting such a payment would be beneath the dignity of a philosopher, as it would make him dependent on the very powers he sought to guide with reason. He was not rejecting wealth on principle, but he was demonstrating that his desire for integrity was infinitely greater than his desire for comfort or financial gain. By wanting the right thing, a clear conscience and self-respect, he made himself untouchable. His student Epictetus drove this point home with characteristic bluntness. He said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." He meant the endless, restless desire for externals, for the things that are not up to us. Every time you curb a craving for approval, for luxury, or for control over others, you are cutting one of those strings. You are declaring your independence from the puppet master. So look inward for a moment. What is one desire that, if you could truly master it, would make you feel profoundly more free? Is it the longing for social media validation after every post? The need for your boss to recognize your work? The craving for a newer, shinier possession? Identify that single string, and you have found the exact spot where your training in true power begins. Words are the currency of power in a noisy world, but silence is the vault where true strength is kept. The Stoics understood that the unchecked tongue is a leak in the inner citadel, draining your power with every careless syllable. In an oppressive environment, whether a tyrannical court or a toxic workplace, reckless speech is a direct path to your own destruction. It gives your adversaries information, reveals your weaknesses, and provides the very rope they can use to hang you. Strategic silence, however, is not a sign of weakness or fear. It is a form of active resistance, a way to preserve your energy, conceal your plans, and maintain the integrity of your position. While the tyrant must fill the air with noisy propaganda and constant declarations to project an image of strength, the Stoic cultivates a quiet integrity that needs no advertisement. Your calm silence in the face of provocation becomes a deafening rebuttal to the chaos around you. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno of Citium, pinpointed the core of this wisdom when he said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This is not just a clever saying, it is a strategic blueprint. Listening grants you understanding of the landscape, insight into the motives of others, and the patience to choose the perfect moment for action, if action through words is even necessary. Seneca echoed this, warning that sometimes to say nothing is to say a great deal. Your silence can be a judgment, a shield, or a sanctuary. Think back over your own recent interactions. Recall a moment of tension, perhaps a heated discussion or a frustrating criticism. Did you feel compelled to fill the space with your own voice, to defend, to explain, to counter every point? Now consider the alternative. What power might you have held if you had simply absorbed the words, offered a calm nod, and chosen to say nothing at all? That restrained silence is not an empty space. It is a territory you fully control, a deliberate and powerful act that often speaks far louder than any retort. This courage is a quiet calculation, not a blind rush. Stoic courage is the unwavering commitment to do what is right, a decision made by reason long before the moment of fear arrives. It is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it, the choice to act virtuously even when your heart is pounding. This is a courage of endurance, of speaking a necessary truth without flamboyance, and of standing your ground without actively seeking to become a martyr. It is the difference between a soldier who recklessly charges into enemy fire and one who holds a vital position with disciplined resolve. The first is driven by impulse, the second by principle. We see this reasoned bravery in the Roman senator Thracia Petus, who lived under the terrifying reign of Nero. Thracia did not stage a dramatic, suicidal revolt. His opposition was far more subtle and, for the tyrant, far more dangerous. He simply stopped attending the Senate. He withdrew his presence and his consent, a silent but powerful protest against the emperor's corruption. He continued to live his life according to his principles, a living reproach to the moral decay around him. This was not a grand gesture meant for the history books. It was a daily, deliberate act of courage that said, "I will not participate in this." His quiet defiance was a constant, nagging reminder to Nero that not everyone could be corrupted or cowed. The philosopher Cicero, whose own thinking was deeply shaped by Stoic ideas, defined this kind of strength perfectly. He wrote, "The brave man is not he who feels no fear, for that is stupidity. The brave man is he who sees the danger ahead, assesses it with a clear mind, and endures the fear for a worthy cause." That is the essence of Stoic courage, a virtue guided by wisdom. It is not about eliminating the feeling of fear, but about judging the situation correctly and choosing to move forward despite it, because your purpose is just. So think about your own life. Where are you currently facing a situation that calls for courage? Perhaps it is a difficult conversation you have been avoiding, or a stand you need to take on an unpopular but ethical issue at work. What would a courageous yet prudent action look like for you? It does not require a dramatic confrontation. It might be as simple as calmly stating your boundary one more time, or choosing not to laugh at an offensive joke, or quietly continuing your work according to your own standards when cutting corners is the norm. That is the daily practice of courage, the kind that fortifies your inner citadel without needlessly sacrificing your position. Your inner fortress is not an isolated monument, but part of a vast, invisible city. The Stoics called this city the cosmopolis, a universal community of all rational beings, governed by natural law rather than the arbitrary decrees of any single ruler. To see yourself as a citizen of this world community is to hold a loyalty that transcends borders, political parties, and the temporary authority of any tyrant. It provides a support system of shared reason and shared humanity that no external force can ever tear down. The biographer Diogenes Laertius captured this beautifully when he wrote of the Stoic ideal, declaring that the wise man is a citizen of the world. This was a radical notion in the ancient world, and it remains a profound source of strength today. When your primary identity is as a member of the human race, the local dictator trying to command your absolute allegiance is revealed as a petty administrator of a single, small province. His power is provincial while your allegiance is global. This is how Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, could govern justly. He did not see himself as solely a Roman leader, but as a citizen of the world, responsible to the entire cosmopolis. His famous meditations are filled with this perspective, reminding himself to love mankind and to follow the law of nature that binds us all. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." He understood that his own well-being was inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole human community. This cosmic viewpoint dissolves the us versus them divisions that tyrants rely on to maintain control. They need you to see the other as a threat, an enemy, an outsider. But when you look at another person and see a fellow citizen of the cosmopolis, a partner in a shared journey of reason, that manipulative narrative loses its grip. So take a moment to reflect on a local conflict that feels intense and personal, perhaps a political dispute in your community or a rivalry at your workplace. Now pull your perspective upward. See yourself and everyone involved as citizens of that same vast, invisible city. How does that shift in identity change the weight of the conflict? How does it alter your feeling of who your true allies are? There is a profound difference between fearing the worst and preparing for it. The Stoics developed a deliberate exercise known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not a gloomy obsession with disaster, but a brilliant form of psychological inoculation. By vividly imagining potential setbacks in your mind before they happen, you build up an inner immunity. When a difficulty actually arrives, it lacks the element of surprise, that initial sting of shock that so often leads to panic or poor judgment. A tyrant's power thrives on this shock value, on the sudden, unexpected blow that leaves you reeling and compliant. But if you have already lived through the scenario in your thoughts, calmly and rationally, his action feels like a rehearsed scene, not a catastrophe. You greet it with a nod of recognition, not a gasp of fear. Seneca explained the power of this practice perfectly, writing, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." You disarm misfortune by anticipating it. Think of a simple, modern application. You have a difficult conversation looming with your manager, one you are dreading. Instead of anxiously avoiding the thought, you sit down for 5 minutes and premeditate it. You imagine walking into the room. You picture your manager reacting with frustration or dismissal. You feel the initial flush of embarrassment or anger, and then you watch yourself in your mind's eye, responding not with defensiveness, but with calm, prepared points. You have already faced the worst-case outcome in a safe space, and in doing so, you have drained it of its power to control your emotions in the real moment. This mental rehearsal transforms anxiety into preparedness, so ask yourself this question right now. What future challenge, large or small, can you premeditate this week to rob it of its power to surprise and frighten you? Is it a potential rejection, a financial hiccup, or a professional mistake? By consciously inviting that possibility into your mind and walking through your calm response, you are not inviting trouble. You are building an inner fortification that makes real trouble far less formidable. This mastery over your internal world culminates in a state the Stoics called apatheia, a quiet harbor in the storm of human feeling. It is not a cold, robotic numbness, but a profound freedom from the destructive passions that cloud judgment and surrender your power. Think of it as the difference between feeling a sharp pain and being consumed by it. The Stoic goal is to experience the sensation without adding the layer of frantic panic or desperate craving that so often gives pain and pleasure their tyrannical hold over us. When you achieve this, you systematically disarm the two primary weapons in any oppressor's arsenal: torture and bribery. Pain and pleasure are the levers he uses to force your compliance, but if you can master your reaction to both, his tools become useless. History offers stark testimony to this power in the stories of Stoic philosophers who faced brutal interrogations. They were subjected to physical torment designed to break the strongest will, yet they refused to betray their comrades or renounce their principles. Their bodies were not immune to the agony, but their inner citadel remained unbreached. They had trained for this moment not by hardening their flesh, but by fortifying their minds, understanding that the body's suffering is one thing and the soul's surrender is another. Epictetus, who knew the reality of physical vulnerability from his time in slavery, framed this with stunning clarity. He taught, "It is not the thing itself that disturbs people, but their judgment about the thing." For example, death is nothing terrible, or else it would have seemed so to Socrates as well. But the terror consists in our judgment that death is terrible. He directs us to the very source of our suffering, our own assent to the impression that a sensation is unendurable. The pain of torture is a severe sensation, but the judgment that this pain is a catastrophe that must be avoided at all costs, even by sacrificing your integrity, is a choice. The Stoic, through lifelong practice, learns to withhold that catastrophic judgment. He meets the pain with a focused mind, observing it as a fact of the nervous system, not as a verdict on his life. He does not scream that it is unfair. He does not beg for it to stop. He simply endures, conserving all his mental energy for the one thing that matters: protecting his inner freedom. This is the ultimate invulnerability. A torturer can inflict sensations, but he cannot command what those sensations mean to you. A briber can offer pleasures, but he cannot create the craving for them in a soul that finds its satisfaction in virtue alone. Your inner world becomes a sealed system, self-sufficient and sovereign. So pause and reflect on the small pains and pleasures that tug at your own choices every day. The discomfort of a difficult task that makes you want to procrastinate. The lure of a distracting pleasure that pulls you from your purpose. These are the tiny, daily practice grounds for the great fortitude the Stoics describe. Each time you choose to act according to your principles despite a minor discomfort, or to forego a hollow pleasure for a deeper satisfaction, you are building the same mental muscle that allowed those ancient philosophers to face the rack and the flame without flinching. You are proving to yourself that you, and you alone, are the final arbiter of your experience. A quiet mind is not an idle one. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of Stoic philosophy, the mistaken belief that inner peace demands outward passivity. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoic is not called to silently endure injustice in the world, but to actively combat it from a foundation of unshakable virtue, not from a tempest of raw, unthinking anger. There is a world of difference between a passion-driven revolt and a virtue-driven reform. The first is a wildfire burning hot and fast, often consuming the innocent and the guilty alike before sputtering out. The second is a carefully laid hearthfire providing steady warmth and light, built to last through the long night. One is a reaction, the other a response. An action born of fury is easily manipulated, its energy co-opted by other agendas, its focus blurred by the very emotion that fuels it. But an action born of a calm, rational assessment of what is right possesses a clarity and endurance that outrage can never mimic. We see this embodied in the life of Gaius Musonius Rufus, who did not merely write about justice from a safe distance. He actively challenged the corrupt laws and practices of his time, publicly criticizing the Emperor Nero himself and arguing for the moral education of women in an era that largely denied it. His activism was not a reckless scream, but a reasoned, persistent voice that refused to be silenced, even when it led to his exile. He understood that true reform requires not just a burning heart, but a cool head. Marcus Aurelius constantly reinforced this duty to engaged action in his private meditations. He wrote, "Do the things that are right and true and kind." Do the next right thing. This simple, profound instruction cuts to the core of Stoic response. You may not be able to single-handedly overthrow a vast, unjust system today, but you can always do the next right thing directly in front of you. You can speak a word of truth, offer a gesture of support, or simply refuse to participate in a small, everyday wrong. This is how systemic change begins, not with a single explosion, but with countless deliberate acts of integrity. So look at your own life. Where do you see a clear injustice, perhaps in your workplace, your community, or even within your own family? How could you address it not with volatile anger that pushes people away, but with a calm, determined resolve that invites them to see a better way? Your power does not diminish when you set aside the rage. It consolidates, becoming a force that is far harder for the world to ignore. This mastery of your inner world demands a final, crucial discipline, the command of time itself. A tyrant's power often stretches across years, built on the dread of future punishments or the haunting weight of past mistakes. But the Stoic lives in a fortress with only one room, the present moment. By anchoring your entire being in the now, you strip away the tyrant's ability to torture you with what has been or what might be. Your power exists in this single, fleeting point of action, a point he cannot touch. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of time, kairos. It does not mean chronological, ticking clock time, but the right moment, the critical opportunity for decisive action. A Stoic, fully present and alert, is perfectly poised to recognize and seize kairos when it appears, while the anxious or regretful mind lets it slip past unnoticed. Seneca saw the squandering of this precious resource as the greatest of tragedies. In his essay on the shortness of life, he laments, "You are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. You don't notice how much time has already passed. You waste time as if you drew it from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day which you bestow on some person or thing is perhaps your last." He is not warning us that death is near, but that life is happening right now, in the moments we sacrifice to worry and distraction. The controller who keeps you fixated on a past failure or a future threat is robbing you of your only real possession, the present. Your freedom is reclaimed the instant you return your focus to the task directly in front of you. So today, choose one simple activity. It could be drinking your morning coffee, walking to your car, or writing a single email. For just those few minutes, practice being utterly there. Feel the warmth of the cup in your hands. Notice the rhythm of your breath as you walk. Pour your entire attention into the words you are writing. When your mind tries to drag you into yesterday's regret or tomorrow's meeting, gently guide it back. This is not a meditation exercise. It is a training drill for sovereignty over your own experience. In that focused stillness, you will find a power that no external force can ever interrupt. Your attention is the ultimate currency in a world designed to spend it. Every notification, every sensational headline, every piece of gossip is a bid for this finite resource, and when you surrender it carelessly, you are funding a system that thrives on your distraction. The ancient Stoics recognized this 2,000 years ago, long before the invention of the smartphone. They practiced a rigorous defense of the mind, understanding that what you focus on directly shapes your character and your freedom. Epictetus issued a stark warning about this very thing, advising that you must have your principles ready at hand. He meant that you must be vigilant, constantly asking yourself if an impression, a piece of news, or a conversation is worthy of your inner citadel. Is it something within your control? Does it contribute to your virtue? If not, it is a distraction, a form of mental pollution that weakens your resolve. Tyrants and manipulative systems have always relied on this tactic. They flood the public space with trivial scandals, partisan outrage, and meaningless entertainment. Why? Because a population focused on gossip and spectacle is a population that is not paying attention to the erosion of its own freedoms. It is a strategy of misdirection, and it works just as effectively today through the engineered feeds of social media platforms. These modern attention economies are designed to hijack your dopamine loops, keeping you scrolling, reacting, and consuming in a state of perpetual, low-grade anxiety. Each time you engage with content that provokes anger or envy, you are not just wasting time. You are actively training your mind to be reactive and dispersed, making it easier for external forces to guide your emotions and your choices. The practice, then, is to become a ruthless guardian of your focus. This is not about ignoring the world, but about engaging with it selectively and purposefully. It means curating your information diet with the same care you would your food, choosing nourishing content over emotional junk food. It means turning off non-essential notifications to reclaim your cognitive space. It means listening to a contentious debate not to pick a side in the heat of the moment, but to understand the underlying principles at play. So, take an honest inventory of your mental expenditures. What currently drains your attention that you could consciously withdraw it from? Is it the endless political bickering in your news feed, the compulsive comparison to curated lives online? The office drama that consumes your lunch break? Your attention is the guardian of your inner gate. What you allow past it decides everything. True strength is found not in self-importance, but in self-awareness. Stoic humility is this profound understanding of your exact place in the vast, unfolding cosmos, a conscious acceptance of the countless forces and events you will never command. While the tyrant is bloated with hubris, believing his will alone can reshape reality, the Stoic stands firm on the solid ground of what is real. This clear-eyed humility is a devastating defense because it systematically prevents the very frustration and rage an oppressor depends on to control you. He wants you to struggle violently against the unchangeable, to exhaust your spirit pounding against a wall he built. Humility allows you to simply see the wall, acknowledge its presence, and calmly walk your own path around it. Your peace of mind becomes your greatest act of defiance. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who commanded legions, constantly returned to this anchoring perspective in his private writings. He reminded himself, always think of the universe as one living being with one substance and one soul, and how all things trace back to one single perception. And how all things act together to cause all that happens, and how complex and intertwined is the fabric. He was not diminishing his own role, but contextualizing it. He saw himself as a single, vital thread in a magnificent tapestry, not as the weaver holding the loom. This is the serene strength of humility. It is the quiet confidence of a sailor who respects the ocean's power, rather than the frantic arrogance of one who shouts commands at the waves. When you fully accept that you cannot control the storm, you are freed to focus all your skill on steering your own ship. An oppressor's tantrums are like that storm, loud and intimidating, but ultimately just another weather pattern in the vast system of nature. Your humility is the compass that keeps you on course, unmoved by the temporary squall. So where in your life are you still fighting the ocean? Where is your energy being drained by a struggle against an immutable fact, a person you cannot change, or a past event you cannot rewrite? To lay down that futile fight is not surrender. It is the moment you reclaim all your power for the battles you can actually win. The ultimate defense against any form of control is to simply need very little. When your sense of sufficiency is drawn from an internal well, the external world loses its power to threaten or tempt you. This is the profound Stoic art of contentment with little. A person who finds deep satisfaction in basic necessities like their health, their principles, and their capacity for reason becomes a fortress with no obvious gates to storm. You cannot be manipulated by material deprivation if you are content with simple food and shelter, nor can you be bribed by excessive luxury if you see it as a burden rather than a prize. This philosophy was embodied in its most radical form by Diogenes the Cynic, a figure who greatly influenced the Stoics. He lived in a large ceramic tub in the marketplace of Athens, owning nothing but a cloak, a staff, and a wooden bowl. When he saw a child drinking water from his hands, he threw away his bowl, realizing he did not even need that. The story goes that Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the known world, came to visit him. Standing before the philosopher, Alexander offered to grant him any wish. Diogenes, who was sunbathing, simply looked up and said, "Stand out of my sunlight." In that single, breathtaking moment, the man who had everything was dismissed by the man who needed nothing. Alexander reportedly remarked that if he were not Alexander, he would wish to be Diogenes. The true power was not in the command of armies, but in the complete command of one's own desires. This is the wealth Seneca spoke of when he wrote that true riches are a poverty of desires. It is not about having nothing, but about wanting nothing that you do not truly need for a virtuous life. The chase for more, the constant craving for the next possession or promotion, is the chain that binds you to the systems that provide them. So pause for a moment and ask yourself this reflective question. What are 3 non-material things you are deeply, authentically content with right now? Perhaps it is the quiet clarity after a morning walk, the feeling of genuine connection in a conversation with a close friend, or the simple satisfaction of a day's work done with integrity. Listing these anchors in your mind is the first step in building your own unassailable contentment. A tyrant's insults are crafted to provoke a reaction, to make you feel small and force you into a defensive posture. Yet these verbal barbs hold no inherent power to wound your spirit. They are simply sounds in the air, opinions offered without your consent. The Stoic technique is to treat them as you would the chaotic noise of a market, acknowledging their presence but refusing to grant them entry into your inner world. Your true self resides in a place no insult can ever reach. History offers a wonderfully light-hearted example in the philosopher Aristippus, who was once publicly ridiculed by a man in a crowded street. Rather than respond with anger or shame, Aristippus simply smiled and asked his tormentor a question. If you threw a coin at a beggar and he missed the catch, he inquired, who would the coin belong to? The man, confused, replied that it would still belong to him. Precisely, said Aristippus, your insult was thrown and I did not catch it. Therefore, it remains entirely yours. This elegant dismissal reveals the core of the practice. The insult only stings if you reach out and accept it as your own. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political slander, constantly reinforced this mental discipline in his private thoughts. He wrote how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only to what he does himself. The obsession with other people's opinions is a trap that surrenders your peace of mind. Your worth is not decided by the fleeting judgments of others, but by the steadfast quality of your own character and actions. Think back to an insult that recently stung you, a harsh word from a colleague or a critical comment online. Replay that moment now, but with this new lens. See the words not as truths, but as mere noises that you have the power to let pass by without catching. Feel the weight of that old hurt dissolve as you reclaim your rightful ownership of your own inner state. This quiet power does not shout from the rooftops, but it changes everything. The entire Stoic framework we have explored, from the initial line drawn by Epictetus to the final embrace of your fate, converges on a single, unshakable truth. Your self-control is not a limitation. It is the most profound form of power you can ever possess, because it systematically dismantles the very mechanics of external coercion. The dichotomy of control teaches you where the real battle is fought. The Inner Citadel provides the unbreachable fortress from which you command that battle. And Amor Fati gives you the strength to transform every attack, every setback, into fuel for your own resolve. These are not just philosophical ideas, they are tools of liberation. The former slave Epictetus, who understood true powerlessness better than any emperor, left us with the ultimate summation of this journey. He declared, "Free is the person who lives as they wish, neither compelled, nor hindered, nor forced." The person whose choices cannot be blocked, whose desires are fulfilled, whose aversions never happen. Who, then, wishes to live in error? No one. Who wishes to live deceived, impulsive, unjust, dissolute, peevish, abject? No one. So no bad person lives as they wish, and therefore no bad person is free. Freedom is the only worthy goal, and it is found entirely within the governance of your own mind. So now the real work begins with you. Look back over these principles. Which one resonates most deeply with your current life? Is it the practice of withholding your assent from distressing first impressions? Is it the commitment to voluntary discomfort to inoculate yourself against fear? Or is it the daily effort to focus only on what is within your power? Choose just one. Identify the single Stoic principle you will commit to practicing in the coming week. Carry it with you as your personal key to a stronger, freer life. If this path of ancient wisdom applied to modern challenges has been valuable for you, consider subscribing to this channel. We are dedicated to exploring more ways you can build an unshakable inner core. Thank you for